All right, Rod, you're on.
Good afternoon, all. I'd like to call to order the December monthly meeting of the Cohoes IDA, the final meeting for 2024. And at this time, Mr. Dugwire, if you call the roll.
Mr. Dion.
Here.
Ms. Tarlow.
Here.
Mr. Pascal.
Here.
Mr. Dugwire. Here. Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. DeGiro. Mr. Paradise.
Here. With a full quorum present, we'll move on to our first item, which is approval of the meeting minutes for November. Did anyone have any changes?
Nope.
They're in your pile.
We all good? If anyone would like to make a proposal for approval, thank you. Mr. Moore, thank you, Mr. Chair, we'll give you the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on, we're going to skip down onto the agenda out of respect to Assistant Chief Keefe, who's here today. And we're going to ask you to come on up and give us our quarterly update of how our properties are going. And I think we're going to discuss some other things also.
Yeah, so I just want to preface this. Mr. Keefe, thank you, is with us. He's going to talk broadly about the numbers, right? I asked him specifically not to bother. Yeah, that's it. So, because what we're more concerned about is that letter. And Kate, remind me what the name of that letter was, but we had a specific name for it. But the letter went out, yes, to our pilot holders to begin to schedule inspections. And there was interest in having the police department accompany us to those inspections. And when I spoke to Mr. Keefe, he had, I thought, a pretty good definition of how that might change the game. So I thought it's good that you, one, get an update on the other properties, and two, hear his thoughts about that and think about it, because of course it's up to you to make those decisions. So.
Like I said, I just grabbed the three main properties. Well, I think you hit 55 Sergeant, you guys want it, and then Delaware Ave.
Yeah.
And I went back to June, so I did June to present. So June to present, 55 Sergeant Street, we've had 109 calls for service there.
Okay.
Now that includes EMS calls and everything else, but 109 calls in that period of time. Now, 70 Delaware Ave, the same period, we've had 134 calls there. And then, I'm sorry, that's 70 and 90 Delaware Ave, we had 131 calls. The issue with Delaware Ave is they're getting to the point where they're not calling us anymore. And we've gotten a lot of tips and a lot of calls, people stopping in. Those two places are a nightmare.
Officer, when you say they, who are they not calling?
The residents, they've stopped calling. There's people that some people we have a drug tip line. We've had calls on the drug tip line where they say, we're just too scared to call. We don't want to call. The prostitution, the drugs, everything in those buildings are out of control. We've had people that live on Congress Street, who's lived on Congress Street their whole life, have been moved down there. They've actually come into the station and said, we can't even live here. So we try to do our best to be down there as much as we can, but it is becoming.
So by definition, this is kind of like a tipping point.
Yeah, it's
They're not calling.
Those
That's
two places down there are pretty bad. They're pretty bad places.
I'm going to put a call in first thing tomorrow. We talked early, we need to have it come to Jesus.
Yeah, it's
I'll reach
like I
out to
said,
you.
we've gotten, like I said, people will call our tip line and basically tell us there's basically 70 is bad, but 90 is just as bad. And so we have those issues there.
All right.
55 Sergeant has gotten a lot better. I'm on monthly calls. I have monthly calls with Heather, and I go through the numbers, and we've seen a drastic. That's very decline. And they actually have thrown people out of there. There was
that's
two women
promising.
got in a knife fight in there, and they threw them out. So when something happens there, it seems we get reaction, and they'll move. Down there, we call down there, and
Well,
it's tough. We've had issues where we've needed records from them, or they filed FOIL requests, and it's not a good group to really work with, unfortunately.
prime properties.
Yeah, they've been tough. It's just been a little bit tough with sometimes dealing with them. And again, they might not, I don't know if they have to know what's going on in there, but it is getting to the point where we are having people not call.
Is there any private security or anything on staff that they hire to assist you with? No.
Have you been able to confirm the illegal activity that's been reported? Or?
We go with the guy, when we respond down there, you see things.
Okay.
The problem we have is we're trying to get our detectives to get in there, but they know when you're coming in.
Sure.
You know, they know, it almost becomes a place where they know who's supposed to be there and who's not. It's just like when we do our operations at the towers, and everybody knows who lives there, so getting in there is very hard. But we are planning on focusing down there and trying to see what we can do with, because we got a couple calls about some prostitution down there, so we really want to kind of get down there and find out what's going on. So, there are two really ones that we have to kind of focus on and really work on
Well,
cleaning them up.
that is extremely disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we've been taking all the steps we've been taking this year. Why it all gets dragged out and sometimes is mercilessly slow. We are in that position now to start taking action on that, so.
And if need be, I can just go in deeper with going in and pulling more calls and get the.
So I'm going to call them at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'm going to insist that we have a meeting tomorrow, Thursday at the latest.
And I think too, and you if you want to have a meeting, but if you're gonna do these inspections,
Yep.
it might be better to not tip them off, to give them a chance to
Okay.
do things. So if you're gonna go down, just go down and kind of.
Well, we do have to give them notice.
Notice, but you kind of still go down and.
So one of the biggest things that we were able to do is in the wording, with our leverage with these people that do receive generous tax breaks, is adding the word nuisance on advice of our counsel. That is a lovely, broad term that now gives us a lot more leverage to be able to financially communicate with these people a lot better. It's probably the way to put it.
I don't know that we have to actually disclose everyone who'll be attending
Right.
the inspection up front.
Well, I'm looking at two different things. I'm looking at this as an emergency call that I'm making tonight or tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. I'm just
That's
talking about
completely
in
separate.
general.
We're gonna sit down with him within the next, we'll give him the Friday. I should be realistic, but yeah, that's. So now the rest is on the inspections and what have you. We appreciate that. Obviously, we were looking at it as a symbol of, the rules have changed. We're not, the party's over. You're gonna do this, or we're gonna start using the legal things that we can do.
Who runs the property though? Is it Catholic Charities or is it actually Prime? Is
I'm the owner, they
manager?
are the holder of the pilot.
Right, but I'm
Yeah,
just
but who
saying,
manages?
Oh, it's Catholic Charities.
Well,
Well, I've always understood, oh no, I'm gonna want them too. No, we did
because
this
they
once
do,
before.
as far as I know, they're the ones doing the placement as well.
They are,
That's,
And technically, they're tax exempt, like there's some things we can do
what we're going
to
to.
shut down the program.
that's
Absolutely.
kind of, I think even when we met in her office, we said you need to start the screening process a little better.
Absolutely.
I understand that there's certain, you have to have some spots for
Right.
people, but you still have you have to screen your people a little.
Well, before we didn't have
better.
teeth, now we have teeth.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're having. We're having these, moving people in, and it's just, it turns into kind of a nightmare.
That's, what you're saying is ridiculous. It's completely and utterly unacceptable.
And then on the others, like we spoke, with the inspections.
Yes.
So this is in reference to the letter we sent out, and we're going to begin to go out and do inspections.
Like I talked to Pete, we have no problem coming along with you, but just remember is that if you're going there in a kind of, I want to keep this informal, we want to kind of keep it, somewhat.
Nope, we're done with that.
It's just when you attach police
No, I
to
know.
it, it changes the dynamic. People shut down, I don't know the way you're getting into apartments. You knock on the door, somebody looks through and they say a police officer, chances are, even down there, they're not going to open that door.
Right.
They're not going to open that door. They're not going to be as cordial or open because
So this inspection is part of them keeping the pilot.
Yeah.
Agree.
So it is scheduled. They will know the time that we're coming, what have you. if they resist, then they just hand the key. Everything.
So like,
Create the trust.
so that's, I like to, like told you, I will have, if you want us there, we'll be there. It just
We can
does
discuss it,
change
certainly.
the dynamic of.
And I agree, I
the
totally
interaction.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
it kind of raises the level of it, and sometimes, you know, that friendly conversation you might have with somebody to try and maybe talk to them and see if there's an issue or how they can help, changes it while we're there. Because people just seem to clam up when we're around. So
Unfortunately.
that's, either way, so we'll do either way, whatever you want to do, we'll be there if you need us. But just think sometimes, depending on how you're trying to proceed.
Honestly, maybe what you're telling me, Mosaic, we may pass on it, but maybe 70, 90, we do want to send it there.
Case by case.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
if
that's-
it's routine, like, and there's no nuisance.
Right.
then I think
Yeah, yeah,
that's-
yeah. We don't need to do that,
You
but
know. And like I said, and if you changed it and you said, you know what, we want to go down initially, just, and then you get in there and you're like, this doesn't feel right. It's a phone call away, we have officers with you.
Right.
Rod, aren't there other concerns in addition to the calls? Aren't there concerns about the job creation in other parts of the pilot
Absolutely.
that are not being met?
correct. And those are other things in the letter that Pete sent out that we're going to discuss. We absolutely discussed that they have to, now we're asking for certified payroll for 3 years.
Okay.
So you just can't fill in the form and send it in and say that, yeah, there's 3 people.
But this is
You
also,
got 3 years now to prove that they've been paid there.
this isn't a meeting with residents, this is a meeting with owners.
Right,
Right.
right.
So-
The people that receive
Right.
gracious tax breaks.
Right.
Yeah,
I just thought if you're going to people's apartments, just to look at apartments.
No, if
Okay.
any apartment we
Okay.
go into would be a schedule
Oh, okay.
showing,
Okay.
they would be
Yeah.
aware of it. I think we are requesting 1 vacant, 1 occupied.
Yeah.
Because the other leverage we have is that there's code violations, things like that. Anything that we can then go back is going to give this board leverage because we were able to change our policies on what the expectations for these tax.
And what I
Break receivers.
just thinking right now is what might be even better for the situation is to not have a uniform officer with you, but I can see if a detective will be with you. And then I changed it, and then the detective can be with you, he's in plain clothes.
Sure.
And then he can also see what's going on. And if something does, happen with there, it's a radio, he's got a radio on it, but it, again, kind of brings that level down, because,
It seems like for the frequency of activity down there, it would be in our best interest in the safety of our board members to bring someone with
and
us.
so that's like,
With a big
it's up
stick.
to whatever you want to do, but it might be
But if the
beneficial
plane
just have a
wasn't
detective
useful.
with you,
Yeah.
or just a detective to come along, and if it rises to something else, the whole town.
Yeah.
will show up.
No, I mean, when we go to White Street, Todd Drake's building, I don't think that we are going to show a force or it's a market rate apartment, but in this particular one, I think niceness is over. We've been polite for the past few years. I'm kind of sad because I think in one of the reports, it was either you or John's last one, it was an encouraging report down there. So I think that's why I'm even more angry and appalled now that it's so backtracked.
Because, like I said, 130 calls in
Yeah.
that period of time. And again, that does include EMS calls, but. it's-
Right, but that's not-
just calls of service that you're sending resources.
And the tax credits that they were giving, that was not what is expected. So the city can no longer continue to carry this burden.
It's a nuisance.
This has to be adjusted. So it doesn't mean they're losing their pilot, but maybe it's going to be renegotiated, So
what I-
maybe they can pay, so we can get you 2 more officers or 2 more paramedics, whatever. So,
And what I can do is I can just break down the numbers a little more.
yeah,
I'll check to see what, kind of the calls that I see that are really high-end calls that we
Yeah.
should know about, the both buildings and.
yeah. No, I will follow up and we will definitely, by the end of Friday, we will meet with them.
Okay.
That's it.
Any questions?
Interesting, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Appreciate your
No
time.
problem.
Thanks.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate everything.
My God.
Mr. Tim,
Yes.
when Rod makes point of contact and we begin to plan this, should I just include you on those emails?
Just go ahead and, like I said, I'll help set it.
And you'll coordinate?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
We want to do the inspection, also like code enforcement.
Yes. Yeah, we've discussed that also. Let them see you. I don't believe they have an issue getting in the buildings, do they? I mean, if code knocks on a door at Cayuga Towers, they gotta let them in, right?
Well, generally, the inspections are set up by appointment.
Right, it's the same thing we're doing.
You know,
Yeah.
Even if they get complaints of something, they still have to make the appointment to go there and check out the complaint.
Right,
It's not like they can just walk in there and knock on the door and people are gonna let them in.
So certainly, if you set it up in advance, you're gonna show you one occupied and one unoccupied apartment. They're not gonna be the ones with the code violations.
Right.
exactly. That's why I want more eyes looking all over as we're walking through. I'm, my favorite saying, I'm dumb, I'm not stupid.
That's a good point, though. No uniform, you're probably gonna have an easier time with it.
Yeah,
Rod, is this something that you still want the code officials involved in, or do you want to just work with the police department and do?
oh no, we'll take them. I think we would consider fire too, whatever. What's that?
I mean, code is fire, right?
Yeah. No, I think especially with what we just heard, the time for polite conversation's over.
It may
So-
be too going forward in our closing documents on these pilots that it's in there that you'll submit to an annual code inspection and anything else.
That is in there, and the language on certified payroll was in there too. We just never really enforced it or put it into the letters we have now. So those tools were there, we just were unaware of them, but now they've all been pulled out.
Well, I think you gotta take some steps with notification with these things in a formal letter and then do the meeting so that when you're in a position to pull this,
Yep.
we have all our ducks in a row. I have some other thoughts, but that's an attorney-client privilege discussion.
Okay.
So just let me know if everyone is doing that.
Pete has already sent out the letters and 2 or 3 have already gotten back.
Yeah,
to
we've
you.
gotten some emails, so I'll begin
Then
to,
I'll work with code on scheduling and stuff like that.
okay.
Yeah, I think early January would be our target now.
Yeah, I think so.
Make sure the heat's working. Did we have a copy of the pilot letter?
I didn't print one, but I have one here. If you, I
But
can,
everyone has seen it.
everyone has
Yeah,
seen, because we approved it.
Right.
They had approved it.
So we all understand, as we were talking about prior, this is the decision where we're moving forward in. So I need to make sure the board understands we're going to be taking a very tough approach there.
Very good.
So
Yes,
I need to know the support's there.
yes, definitely,
So we will upset somebody somewhere, I promise you,
definitely.
if we do it correctly.
And to Rod's point, is it really upsetting when we just heard? I mean,
I was just gonna say.
That's-
I didn't think.
Yeah.
that's concerning.
There's no, this is perfect, because how upsetting that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're ruling the roost.
His last
here.
time was really, they had, it was positive.
It was
Yeah.
Pusey last time,
That's upsetting.
Well, maybe.
which,
Yeah,
It makes sense, though, if people stopped calling.
that's scary.
That's why the numbers dipped, because they're not getting the calls.
yeah,
So the situation is getting worse, and the number of calls is going down because of the situation.
I'll be curious. I will
That's
say
alarming.
for Prime, every time I've reached out in a situation like this, they have been in my office, usually by the end of business. Be curious to see how they respond this time. So
Wow.
I wonder how much they're aware of this.
Yeah.
So. All right.
Well, it's Catholic Charities is not the developer.
No, it's a
Prime.
joint venture.
So do we really know what the day-to-day relationship is? Prime maybe doesn't know what the hell's going on.
We need to put the pressure on Prime to put the pressure
the
on Catholic
pilot
Charities.
is with Prime.
Right, but it may be that's the problem. Catholic Charities is the one managing, and Prime isn't day-to-day seeing what's
And
going on.
that's why we're going to remind them.
Then Prime's going to have to make a financial decision.
Yeah.
They can keep Catholic Charities and lose their pilot, or they can work with us and work it out. Sometimes let's not overcomplicate this.
Yeah.
That's why this year it's been kind of a dragging year, but we've really been putting things in place.
But do I understand that Main Street has improved?
Yes, 55 Sergeant, that's what he was
So
saying.
again, different management situation.
They fully embraced,
They began to
we had
read.
a tough first year with them. They were very resistant at first. Honestly, it's the same thing as Prime. when they had the issue with the mold, we made 2 phone calls. We got the state involved. They had a credit removed almost instantly, and they've been a wonderful citizen ever since.
So they've responded to our actions.
To financial, when they started losing credits, now they have a monthly call with the police and what have you. The whole relationship changed. Again, same situation. We made a financial move on that.
And it'll be interesting when we go there to learn from them if it's really made their life easier to rent and operate and function
But again,
in that capacity.
That's the difficulty for us, because you're talking about housing. And so the different management entities, community buildings versus Catholic Charity versus the Cohoes Housing Authority. So you see very different outcomes because of different managers. And there's an economic development agency, but that's not our thing.
My gut tells me I have a feeling what's going on down there, but it's not for public record, but I have a feeling. If we all give it some thought, I think we can all put 2 and 2 together. So it needs to be addressed immediately. And it is a financial decision that they've made. I can already guess it is. So anyway, on to something positive. Pete, if you want to give us an update with Skylar Bakery, where we're at.
I've spoken to Scott. He is in the final stages with his bank, which was Thursday. He hadn't heard anything. He was supposed to hear back Thursday. He hadn't, but
Do we have a signed contract?
we don't.
Why?
What's the deadline on that? I think we,
Deadline, all the contingencies are in there. He should have signed it a while ago. And then there's a banking contingency in there. There's due diligence and his planning approvals is in there. But right now, we're spinning our wheels and he hasn't committed to purchase. And we need a down payment.
okay, I'll give him that ultimatum then actually tomorrow.
I don't think you need a contract before you went to the bank.
Well, yes, but
Which is why I produced it, yeah.
he's working with, the bank is working with them based on that contract.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we definitely need to get that. So on to the Realtor Breakfast. We were having
What's with that?
Yep.
Have they been through planning at all?
no, and as they would. So we do need to get that taken care of ASAP. Moving on to the Realtor Breakfast. We were having some conversations regarding this. For everybody who wasn't here, at our last meeting, this board made a statement where they wanted to exercise almost a 6-month option and go forward. We were instructed to reach out to Paul Bonaquista and tell him basically the intent of the board, which Pete and I did a day or two within the meeting. It was received well. He's a big boy. He understands we want to look at other options, but also wants to be involved of anything that we may find or what have you. So I don't want to get off course of what we've done. Pete has done a great job in the last few weeks getting the spec sheet together, getting a page up on our webpage. And he's had the opportunity to do the podcast talking about the fire sites. I did a bit on Channel 6 regarding the fire sites. I hope everybody's seen that. So we're actively trying to be as loud as limited resources that we have, getting word out there. But from there, you want to?
Yeah, so the spec sheet is in front of you, and that's actually courtesy of Economic Development.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. I think you should review that, take a good look at it. It has, I think, all the pertinent information we need there. It's enough to provide the realtors. I think, in my opinion, and you guys can decide this, but we have to give the realtors more than just that site, right? We can give them that site, and then we can also talk about, I think the other things we need on there is the direction we want for that site. But I think, Steve, we should include, since we have the audience, other sites in Cohoes that we want to develop, our path, our goals, where we're heading. You're putting out an RFP for the library. We need to touch on a lot more than just this, but this is our featured property. So take a look at the document, the spec sheet, and let's
this is live on our webpage now, right?
that document is not, but that webpage that I shared with you is, which sort of breaks
Oh,
down a lot of what's shared here. So if you go to our webpage, you'll be able to see all this information. How did we get here? We had 2 RFPs that went unanswered. And because of that, we were able to move forward and, I guess, exercise developers, realtors, or whoever wanted to develop it through our choice, right? We had 2 proposals at the time, and the board chose to go with Paul Bonaquisti's. We moved forward. He presented the 60 that eventually was not the direction that the board members wanted to go in. And that's when we chose to say, let's back up. Laura provided that great word of transformative to sort of try to pinpoint what we're looking for at that site. And that's where we are today. We want to have a realtor's breakfast. We potentially may want to do a study. That might be off the table now, who knows? But we're moving forward to exercise every possible option to get what we can on that site that might not be residential, might be mixed, might be, it probably wouldn't be industrial, but we're exploring every option. And I think you're doing the right thing. I think you should take this as slow as you are. Give it some time.
The other thing I would just add that I think we should include in information is, and Ralph was talking about it a little bit, to really drive home that I don't know that an IDA really is looking for, or this IDA, and you can all correct me, but what I've heard is not just housing, at least.
Correct.
Right? So don't come in with someone who's just going to build housing. The second piece of this is if you're looking to use economic development tools for the IDA, the pilot, the sales and use tax, the mortgage tax exemptions, here's what type of projects would qualify for that. Because if they come in with the housing and then find out we can't even do a pilot, you can't even entertain it because it doesn't fit the criteria. So I think I would want to put together a few words of, here's the different benefits from the IDA, here's what type of projects would qualify, so that, there's not this, hey, this construction of this, I'm going to need a pilot, and then it's, well, one, either we couldn't do it, or 2, you're not too crazy about doing it, right? So, I think it's important you start to narrow down what it is you're looking for. And that's kind of what you're saying, in a sense.
Well, yeah, there's one, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And sort of in Paul's defense.
Well, let me write that down.
Write that down.
Words of
In
wisdom.
Paul's defense, he had no idea what we
Trust me.
thought was a doable project, okay? So the prior proposals and Paul, they had no idea what we would accept. So they threw out what they wanted to do, because we didn't give any indication of the kind of thing we were looking for. And that's why I think
Good point.
this illustration that one of our citizens came up with isn't the only plan or the only solution, but it is a concept that's the kind of thing we would like. The backlot parking, Steve has mentioned before, not putting all your parking on Regent Street, doing parking on Main Street, something that retains some of the architectural heritage of the city, something that has some retail aspect or some commercial aspect. So I think it's good to throw out some ideas about the kind of things that would be wonderful on that site. And yeah, I think, as you said, it's good for people to understand if they come up with a straight up housing project, that's not what we're looking for. Beyond that, there's a million different possibilities. Who knows what it could be?
Well,
Who knew buses would be such an attraction? But
also, the housing project with commercial on the first floor. Unless you have some tenants or a tenant for that commercial, we don't need more vacant commercial on the first floor on Remsen. So,
well, and I think it's unrealistic to have all of that happened without some residential aspect. It just doesn't seem like
Agreed.
that happens today. So again, how would how would they know that? How would we know that we recognize that while we don't want, you know, an 8-story housing project, we do understand that there's probably going to be some residential in the mix. So it's hard to give an idea of where we're going. But at the same time, I think, hey, to throw something like this out there and say, hey, here's one idea, that's nice. It's not the only idea. And I think the realtor breakfast absolutely is the way to go. And two things. I also think it needs to be in the context of where the city's going. I mean, there's $10 million state investment coming down the line. That's got to have some impact on the downtown. They have to know about that. You know, and we can't assume that they went to the state website and know what's happening in Cohoes. So I think we have to tell them, these are some of the exciting things that are happening downtown. You know, the Park.
I think we should include a lot of that. I mean, it should include available developments, developments that are coming down the line. The area national grid cleaned up along 787 there.
There's quite a few years before that would be developed.
It should be on their radar. We should put that on their radar. DPW, do we ever plan on moving that? Potential, right? Use the word potential. We've got to begin to engage them and keep them engaged and let them think and believe, because the reality is it does exist, that there's a great deal of opportunity in the 4 square miles that we have here.
And the IDA is only one aspect, and pilot is only one aspect. There's community development funds available. There's LDCC, the Cohoes Local Development Corp help. There's other avenues that could, and there are grants. I mean, depending on the project.
Albany
where they're
County.
going, there could be grants available.
Altech Fund.
So there's a lot. The only other thing we haven't mentioned today that I think is out there is probably want to do it at the music hall.
Yeah, it's on the invite here. That's right. So we need to, today what we need to do, I think, is you guys proofread the spec sheet, make sure you're happy with it. Talk about what you want to add. And you don't have to do it now. You can send it to me, but what do you want to add in terms of further development or what your vision is for this site, so that we can include that in any documentation that we bring to this event. Confirm a date. Is January 9th the right date? Do you want to push it another couple of weeks to give us an opportunity to do this work and give them enough time to have an invite for a few weeks or a couple of weeks to prepare for?
The reason we liked it early is because people's calendars aren't filled yet.
Right, and January, I think
And
for
they're
a whole
ambitious,
January
and
is
full of
still.
hopes and dreams of the new year before they get beaten down by the 30th.
Right, by the third week, they've already given up on their.
Year's already over.
Can I ask, did the proposal for remodel now coming in front of the board? Because I have that, the mayor asked me to run the copies off and give them to all the board members so that you can at least see this. Because my understanding was nobody saw his proposal for the fire subs. So
Why would
I
he?
can give that to you and you guys can discuss it or have a meeting with Carl or whatever you want to do.
Is this the second proposal?
It's the same people as the second proposal, but initially it's a different proposal.
It's different than the first one? Well, when did that come in? Just now?
Actually, the first one that was submitted was back in May.
Yeah,
May
because we
23rd of 24.
we did consider that. We did it on the record too. And they moved forward with Bonacristi.
Right, it wasn't considered, which is why they met with Bonacristi. But any proposal moving forward now would have to be in the open period, which we don't have right now.
Okay, and there's another one here from December.
A revised proposal, right? Yeah.
Who did they submit that to?
I'm sorry.
They submitted a new proposal to whom?
I got it today.
But it,
So
yeah,
this is what we-
It has not been sent to us.
The
We-
new proposal?
we aren't taking
Resend it over to
proposals.
Rob. You should have it in this email.
Okay.
We aren't taking proposals though. That's why I'm baffled. Like, we've been talking about where we've been going for 3 meetings now.
And the only thing I heard about was the Bonacristi deal. I didn't hear anything about
No,
this.
it was
And that's why I got the call from the mayor today SPVs to run these copies and hand them out to them.
Right.
So that they can see it.
Understood.
Pull the
And
tape, it's all there. We
no, it is. And respectfully, they'll have an opportunity to submit another proposal. We're just not in the open period right now. So let us go through this process. And then, and it'd probably be better off too, because more will come out about what we're looking for and how we want to develop this. So the proposal can probably meet that standard. It's a better fit.
You got this
I just
today.
wanted to make sure that you guys had the first one. Because
Yeah.
my understanding was
Right.
you didn't have that, the one from Matt. That was my understanding.
No, Steve gave us both of
Right.
those at the same time.
Financially, it was a much lesser,
We,
amount.
we did review that proposal,
did.
and I remember we felt there were some gaps in some areas that weren't addressed
Yeah.
the way they needed
Look,
to
financial number off the top was almost 2/3 difference in the
be.
price.
So it is
moved forward
part of
with-
one of our meetings where we did review it.
Right.
And it was reviewed but not selected.
Again, that's, as we keep talking about not wanting residential, that is part of the frustration, because that is what we keep receiving.
So to reiterate, Sharon, thank you. To reiterate, make your comments, make your notes. If you want any changes to the spec sheet, I think it's pretty comprehensive there for what we need, but we need to then add on top of that what we're looking for, where our expectations are with a site like this. Laura, to use your word again, to make it transformative, right? What direction are we heading in? So build up on that a little bit.
So this is the preliminary of the piece to go out through.
That'll be, yeah, just an invitation, which again, it's just a quick blurb put on a document.
And we'll probably enhance that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And a date, and again, selecting, because it's December 17th now. With the holidays, getting it out, I mean, we may not get the invitation out till the first week of January.
First one, yes.
Maybe not. Yeah.
You, I think, recuse yourself from that meeting.
Oh, was that
Because
the same meeting for the island?
Yes.
I think so,
Oh, so that's why I wasn't.
yeah. But we did, because I mean, I reviewed it, yeah.
Put that in front of him.
And
Pick a
it
day.
was
That's why I don't remember.
Yeah.
So
Pick a day.
I wasn't.
You want one more week at least, the 16th?
You would want at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right, it's gotta be in their hands for a couple of weeks.
Well, let me, the bigger question is the music hall doing a showdown?
Oh, right, because Owen did commit to the 9th, yeah.
Do you have all their schedule?
I'm on it.
So, makes sense.
Nope,
So-
it's all concert, so
That's good,
that shouldn't be a problem.
so we're gonna push it one more week
January 31st, the play starts, so they'd be set up for that.
to January 16th. It'll at least give them a couple of weeks to have
The breakfast, you can move
Yeah.
it-
yes.
Move it back.
So we're gonna have that at the Cohoes Music Hall? No, I think we should do it upstairs, because the visitor center probably isn't.
It's not a great place for like.
Yeah, no, and we want to really showcase. 16, yeah, at 8 a.m. So again, it makes it tight for us, I know. I get it. Yeah. Makes it tight for us, so please, whatever changes or additions you want, get them to me as soon as possible, and then I'll get the invitation cleaned up, and then we'll get a list of people and realtors and developers that we want to send this out to. And also, to what extent you
So it's
want,
kind of going out like this, right?
it'll probably be a card, really, but yes.
I mean, with the spec sheet, or we're gonna hook onto that?
To be determined, right? Are we going to send this out digitally? Are we going to send this out by mail? So we'll figure that out in the coming days.
Yeah.
I think if I was a realtor and I got just this, they might not come, but if I got
Exactly.
this, they would come.
That's what I'm
And
thinking.
some more, right?
Color and multimedia and.
Yeah.
Right. there anything else?
Yes, our last agenda item for this meeting is our financial update, which is, I know Mike had sent them out. Do we? Okay, yes.
All bills are paid to date.
So, our biggest issue that we have is we have no income. So this is probably the second year we've been going with no income. I believe we sat here last year hoping that the DRI was going to come in and there was going to be a multitude of pilot applications and things that were going to generate revenue. I still believe that will happen, and I still believe that there are numerous avenues for us to generate revenue. Luckily, we deal with large numbers, so the losses that we're seeing and whatever would really be wiped away in one transaction.
Which, by the way, I did just get a text from Scott. His loan was approved. So we're going to get that contract signed for.
Right. So there are many sources. I just would be negligent if I didn't mention that we've had a loss for the second year in a row, and I'm not thrilled with that.
What do we stand to get from that contract?
That you're looking at least 6 to 10 months to even get to
Right.
close. So the cash from that won't come in.
Correct.
That'll come in 2026.
No.
2025.
What was the
What's the
purchase
amount?
amount?
240, 239, something around there.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it's there. It's, as I look at my open orders every day, the money's there. It's under contract.
However,
Right.
which goes back to the statements I've been making for months. When we're done with Remsen, we have no other business on the table. So I'm going to schedule a meeting in January, and then on the agenda is going to be for discussion, future sites for us to acquire and develop. So it might be something you also want to add to your to-do list, but is
Is that
there?
something we want to do? Shouldn't LBC be buying land, not us?
We both have the ability to do so. We could work with the city on properties that they have. There's some
I think they would bring it to us.
we can work with them. That's one avenue that we can utilize, right? So we want them to participate, but we too should go out there and say, where can we now make an impact? Because the reality is, guys, we're the ones really moving and making things happen, and I think we should keep that momentum going.
Okay.
So what's the next property? Where do you want to move on to?
What's the story with Saratoga Street, that little corner piece that was, the building was out?
Oh, the little lot there.
Oh, that's an RFP. It's just going to be that little, but yeah, we'll issue that RFP in January. There's that. There is the site next to Hoffman's
Yes.
that we did originally turn down.
But we
There's-
don't own that.
We don't own it.
And well, they may be more amenable to a lower number now that we talked to them about the environmentals that was done on that site.
There's some issues that I think more for future conversations.
Right.
But there are some concerns.
Yeah.
Now, Kate, one thing I will put on the record, because did we not, this is going back, when we were going over in our disagreements with TCB, was it not brought to our attention that the main part of their suit was that they had spent $750,000 on environmental studies?
I don't think it was, the total expense was 700 and some. I think environmentals was maybe 4.
But they did
Okay, but I am not
environmental
nuts.
No, they did do
Thank you.
environmental studies, but it depends on what they did.
So we should talk about that.
They may have shared that with Bonaquisti.
I don't think they did. I
I
think he
don't-
went out and got his
He went
own.
and did his own.
Okay.
And
So,
it seems to have come back completely different from theirs, or they never shared.
well, because it went to the lawsuit, technically, we would have normally been entitled to see that.
Right.
But I will tell you, with when we acquired it from the state of New York, there was a bunch of release language because the state knew that there were some issues with it. And we, the city, when we took it, and we took it through the IDA, did not do a phase 2. So
Okay.
we did not know exactly what it was because
Hoffman's
Jacobson never,
Hoffman's built.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted to buy it
but they didn't.
because we wouldn't sell. Ann McCaffrey would have done that deal with one phone call.
Well, they just needed it for surface. They weren't going to build. That's the difference, I think.
Could be, but
It's a
there are also-
but they
conversation.
were probably doing core drillings on the line.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's some environmental issues that have cropped up.
I was very taken aback by the information we were provided based on going back 5 years with you and
But
remembering.
did we ever see what the reports Montecito had said?
No, but if I believe that they read like his did, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely would, especially under contested contract.
And I thought at one
Well, I
point he said
think
he was
that
going to share them
that's,
with
I
Montecito.
don't think that that's the case. I think that was part of the hysteria to get rid of it. And that they were waiting for us to agree to take it back. And if we had the results of that, we would have like.
Yeah, but if they, no, they would have dropped the price to a reasonable amount. They played hardball on the price.
Because what we didn't know, we didn't know.
Touche, but
They figured
it was going to come out at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
I thought the environmental issue was more on the area where the car wash is, because that's where the welding shop was. I mean, this is just pure anecdotal.
I agree.
Down by there, that was a welding
Pete and I
shop.
were very taken aback by
Up further was the
what little
canal.
was
I
shared
think,
with us.
I think it's an opportunity for us to explore. I think that's one area. There's,
The cemetery site.
there is the cemetery that can come back on the radar.
hot mess. Joe looked into that. Yeah, Joe looked into that, and I actually put him in touch with someone who owns a funeral home who's done that. And Joe called me up and said, yeah, I told you.
I think we can explore it. Let's, because there's a big unknown, which is if
The cost is the issue.
the cost is the issue, and that's if there is anyone still entered in that site.
And what you're going to do matters.
What you're going to do may matter. The diocese may not be acceptant. So point being is, do we want to go out and do a preliminary scan and determine whether or not we want to play with that?
And they've gone back and forth. At first, they wanted nothing to do with it. Then at one point with Joe, they were a hot mess. They wanted to sell it that afternoon, and then
And it probably
Right,
all
and
comes down to how their
all of a
lawsuits
sudden that died
are
again.
faring and how their accounts are doing, quite frankly.
But the last phone call we had with them was not promising. They had gone from that they were confident that everything had been removed there too. Things happen. So, I mean, that was a big change. And they made no guarantee what may or may not be there.
But again,
Saratoga site, has there been any discussion about what's gonna happen there?
we don't
I
know.
believe City Hall is working on that, and we're up in.
Oh, there is, okay.
To develop or to demo?
The demo and develop it.
Okay.
Something like that would be probably industrial and then could seek pilot.
You would think.
We could really utilize that land, and I've asked for it, but I was told.
Well, now, the National Grid brownfield site, former St. Michael's and all that sort of thing, Steve seemed to think it would be a long time coming. However, years ago, they were very receptive to leasing. So, yeah, you probably have to leave the room, but they were not interested in selling. A very, very preliminary conversation was lease, sure. So it may not be as far-fetched if you're looking at a lease.
I'm encouraged with the conversation. We need more land. We need more projects.
Now,
We need an income for Rod.
along those lines,
That's all about eventually.
on our fire sites, it would be good to know what the city might be in a position to help with, particularly when you're looking at Main Street. And what possibilities do exist, that would certainly sweeten this deal if the city was in a position to demo buildings and
Well,
pay
and I
the
think that's
parking.
what you want to do to keep good builders like Remodel Now and Carl in, to feel that they're valued and that their proposals are heard and valued. This might not be the Remsen project, but maybe it's, hey, Carl, we have this other land we can work with you on. I think, those small builders make big impact over time.
Great.
And so I hope that that's something we can, work toward as an IDA too. I don't know how it impacts pilots. I don't know what sort of qualifications are needed, but I was looking at one big bang every 5 years instead of the work that's going on daily and weekly and monthly by these other builders.
We need as many developers as possible because again, as you hear me drone on about, we can have every idea in the
Right.
world, but there's nobody writing checks around the state.
And when we get with these big builders, they all need the low-income housing piece to get their grants
Correct.
and other things that they need that are bringing all the crime and problems into the city. So we
Which
need to
this
get
board
away
is
from that
rightfully
vicious
against,
cycle
but-
of decision-making. Like, when you meet with prime properties, can you take them to Starbucks and say, can you change your business model and do this instead? It's like, why aren't those things happening in our little city when I go to these other cities? And it's just so frustrating.
Well,
So
for example, what is the city's interest in developing this site beyond our little capabilities?
No.
And parking, we know there's parking necessary, we know there's grants, we know there's things out there. What is feasible that, certainly if the city was in a position to make that a parking lot, that would change the whole context. And we haven't really explored that.
the city doesn't have any money.
Oh my
Right?
God, that
Or no, is that wrong? The city's,
grants are out.
but you have to have somebody that writes them
Well,
and acquires the funding from the grants.
You have to aggressively.
So I'm gonna go back to my initial statement.
You have to.
The city has no money.
There's always a match with the grants.
Yes.
You always have skin in the game whenever there's grants.
Once
Yeah.
again, yes, in my
And a
prime
lot of times
statement,
the grants are reimbursable.
when I used to
Not
teach-
something
when I
But
used to
you give the
teach-
money up front and then it's aidable, reimbursable.
they never gave me the master's degree, but I used to teach fundraising and grantsmanship. But I always said, you never go after a grant that isn't something you're gonna do anyway. And that's where the matching comes in. It has to be something you're gonna do anyway, by hook or by crook. And there are grants out there, if you're aggressively pursuing them. But if you don't look for them, and you don't pursue them, certainly you're not gonna find them. But there could be. I've heard tell of different, members of the assembly coming up with pots of money for different purposes when it was important. And this is important, and maybe it is worth a conversation somewhere along the line about, okay, what else can the city do to enhance this project?
Maybe the county, maybe the conversations
Well,
with the
that's
county.
part of it, the city calls the county. I got $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I get ripped around.
Project.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Anyway, so you guys have a deadline for 1 week. 1 week from today, if I don't hear from you, then Rod and I are just gonna
Send it out.
send it out, agree to a
Do you have
couple
a
things.
listserv that you guys use or is it?
Like, I think Kevin made some offers to help us with that.
Oh, yeah. I know Kate has one or two
Oh,
in
good.
particular, Kevin O'Connor from Albany County Alliance.
Oh, good.
So we'll
Yeah.
have a decent list.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But, we want to present this right. And I really think we have to have, the LDC has to be well represented, the CIDA has to be well represented, and the city has to be well represented. We have to be there. We all have to be there in an allegiance and really showing that we're building and doing this together. And that's very important because these realtors that are going to come out and write these checks, they want to know that, right? They want to know where they're investing and they want to feel good about where they're investing. That's important.
I know you'll be there, Sharon. I know you'll be there.
Are we thinking to invite the council and the other administrative members?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
primarily the mayor, but
yeah, I would think we'd have to ask Bill to welcome.
yes.
And like certainly Steve was able
Maybe
to
the
put
planning board,
on.
the whole planning board.
To have a good display of potential, have maybe what he presented at the Broadview breakfast.
Yeah, I think that, I think.
Maybe we need to update that.
No, I think that's a basis for presentation, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll get all those things in line, but just give me some meat to put on another document with this. And yes, it'll all be color and probably a decent
Sending this out to all realtors, just commercial realtors.
Commercial.
We should get it to CIREB as well, as an organization.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah, I
it's-
think that's who Kevin was talking
Yeah.
about. Actually, he had one particular person.
If we are we using any of these?
You're free to do what you want.
Well, are we? Or do we need permission to use them?
You've got permission. From the
Okay.
fellow that I asked, unofficially, I asked to do this, that I was not representing the board.
Right.
I was.
Now
doing
the
this-
board's gonna use them.
No, he wants that.
Just let him know.
I will.
Yeah.
He does that all
actually-
over the.
No, I know you, I know who exactly did them, I'm just,
Put it on Facebook, it's public.
yes.
He asked me if it was okay to put it on Facebook. I said, well, yeah, I wanted to see the reactions. The reactions were pretty positive.
Oh, they were,
And
absolutely.
I was just, I would never respond. I'm just looking at, okay, what's going on here? A lot of interest.
Right.
Some things were, a couple of negatives I saw, but that's why I threw it out there. Let's see what we got.
People are always positive when they're not the ones writing the checks.
So one guy said, no. But Hot Dog Charlie's hasn't opened up yet down here. Move them up there. Right in the corner, or drive through there. Right in the corner.
I had a lot of
Crazy
people
idea.
demanding a Taco Bell, but
Tucker.
it doesn't.
No,
seem-
they're going in St. Bernard's. You didn't read?
That's what. Yeah, one with the dispensary in the first floor.
With
There
the
you go.
dispensary in the basement and the cinema.
That's marketing.
Kate's writing a check.
I think I forwarded that to Pete. I had to laugh, but oh my God, Pete was.
Well, a lot of those things that I see on Facebook and wherever, they're beautiful, they're great ideas, but like you said, who's writing the check?
Correct.
And that's where the problem is. I think the difference with this project is it may be important enough that we might be able to find some leverage and some subsidies and some incentives that could make.
I love the look of this project. I think it's beautiful and it's a great anchor to our downtown. But I mean, parking spaces don't pay bills.
Exactly.
And if that was there today, residents would be parking.
Exactly.
We're still not putting people in our businesses.
That's why it should be
There's
on
10
Main Street.
cars on this lot
I
right
agree
now.
with Steve, you put the parking on Main Street, you know.
This won't work.
I don't,
This one works.
There's no-
this one's pretty decent. I just don't subscribe to the fact that we have a parking problem. I mean, go to Walmart right now, guys. You're gonna walk further than you would if you go down and go to Smith's right now.
Yeah, but perception is everything. That's true.
And throw an event that's properly marketed, that has an enticing, how many people come to Rock the Block? Where are they parking? If we're serving something good, they will come.
That's true. But at the same time, I think if we're building, when you're talking about.
That's a
apartments,
different story.
that's
Yes,
different.
yes, I agree.
That's different.
We can't add 60
People
or
coming home from
80
work
people
don't
down
wanna
there.
struggle to park.
No, I agree with that.
We built it and they came, and that was the report we heard earlier today.
Yes.
So we need something different, because we already got Field of Dreams and it's not working out too well.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Such an attitude, girl.
Yeah.
she had a hard
I've
week.
had a tough week.
She's had a
I
tough
know
week.
you do. Yes.
I am the recipient of the
know.
customer.
Standing in place of Kate today, Laura.
I feel like I'm pretty positive today.
Hell of a facade.
All right.
We all sat there?
That's good. Well, this won't work. It's cool.
No, it's all points of, when we do designs for customers, the first one is always just to start the conversation. Anybody ever signed off on a first design, designers would probably have a heart attack and die. So that's not the way it works. You got to have somewhere to start the conversation.
The first one I saw, I looked at that first and I go, well, it looks beautiful, but where's the money?
Right.
Okay, and if you go by there right now, I come down, there's probably 10 cars parked.
Right.
And they're gonna be there.
Yeah.
On a nice spot.
No, absolutely.
Okay, great.
So with that, we've come to an end of another year. And I just have to take a moment and thank everybody for your service. This is, I think, the last true volunteer board in the city. it seems as though we have, sometimes we're not going forward, but we really are.
Thank you for your leadership, Rob.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we call it these days. We are moving forward. We have made some great strides this year. We have put some foundations in, and I do think 25 will be an exceptional year for us. I also want to thank Pete. The last couple of weeks, Pete has really outdone himself on a lot of these issues behind the scenes. It is appreciated, noted. And with that, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Who wants to get us out of here? Thank you, Danny.
Who made the motion?
Ralph made it.
All right.
Here we go.